right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's panel, where we'll be talking about national security and languages and cultural competence. On the behalf of the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research at Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia, I welcome you to the 6th Annual World Languages Week. CULTR, as the center is known, is one of 16 federally funded Title VI language resource centers in the United States. CULTR has created a unique identity around serving the needs of all students and the communities they represent by helping to promote language learning opportunities as part of a 21st century global education. Guided by its core values of access, advocacy, outreach, and research, CULTR has gained a national reputation for innovative approaches to promoting access to language education for all students, regardless of their socioeconomic and ethnic background. I'm Bill Nichols. I'm the director of CULTR here at Georgia State, and I'd like to thank you for being with us today for the panel focused on national security, which I'll be moderating. Before introducing the panelists, I'd like to address a couple of housekeeping and technical issues. All attendees will remain muted throughout the entire session. If for some reason your connection is interrupted during the panel discussion, simply rejoin with the same link you used previously. If the event reaches its capacity, attendees may tune in via live stream on our YouTube channel. Our panel discussion of approximately 35 to 40 minutes will be followed by a Q&A with you, the attendees. Students may submit questions through the course of the discussion and after in the Q&A box by clicking on that chat icon at the bottom of your screen. If you like questions you see, click the thumbs up icon to promote this question to the top of the list. I'd like to draw your attention back to the event website. There, you will find the curriculum guide for teachers and finally, for students, instructions to download the app Goose Chase. Sign up today to join a virtual scavenger hunt as prizes will be awarded to the top scoring schools. Now let's meet the panelists. First, I'd like to introduce Mona Postlethwaite, Language Analysis Skill Community Deputy Director for the National Security Agency, or the NSA. Our other panelist today is Monica Alvarez, Supervisory Foreign Language Program Coordinator for the FBI. So I think we'll go ahead and get right into our discussion. So one of the first questions I'd like to pose to both of you is kind of what, for students out there who are thinking about a career in national security, what is the kind of pathway they should pursue in terms of curriculum? If they're thinking in college, well, what classes should I take, and what major should I be thinking about, and things like that. And I'm curious if it's different, Mona for the NSA or Monica for the FBI. Are you looking for similar things? What do you look at when you're looking at a CV for a potential candidate in terms of their course of study? And Mona, why don't we start with you in the NSA?
Okay. Okay, sure. So what we look for at NSA is somebody with a strong foundation in language. Definitely good language skills means somebody with who has studied 4 years of language, has really gotten that foundational knowledge, can perform at a high level. So you definitely want to study language. Now, other things we're looking at are people who, what else do you bring to your language? I would definitely, for somebody looking to work at NSA today, I would say you need to pair something with your language. So find something that you're passionate about that you can pair with those language skills. Cybersecurity, data science, those are definitely good fields to look at. But we also need people with a background in global security, international studies, somebody who can not just do the language, but also understands how that language interacts in today's environment with other fields like either science or technology, or also international studies and global security.
Interesting. Monica, what about with the FBI?
Well, with the FBI, for linguists, they must possess a professional level fluency in the foreign language. And that involves reading, listening, speaking, and writing. So the qualifications, the language qualifications for that position are much higher than for other positions within the FBI. For other positions, language is always desired, but they don't have to have the skill at that level. But also we are looking for, you know, the typical majors that people are seeking now, the science, technology, engineering, math, of course, foreign language for any of the other positions, finance, accounting, IT, computer science. Also, we look for majors in journalism, English, law, marketing, HR, but we do hire all majors for those positions. And the best candidates are those who major in, are at the best in their skills they love. So we definitely want them to do something that they love, but they can also, you know, put it to good use for working with FBI.
It's interesting that you mentioned finance. Like, could you, like, how would, say, for the FBI, a combination of a foreign language or a world language and finance, how would that make them an ideal candidate for the FBI?
Well, I mean, if for the special agent position, for example, if they're working, you know, maybe a money laundering type case with a foreign language spin on it, you know, that would be helpful. Obviously, they can always lean on our foreign language program if they need a certain kind of expertise. But our investigations touch so many aspects, and often there's a language nexus to them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Are there specific languages that you all are looking for, Mona? Like at the NSA, are there specific critical languages that you feel, okay, this person comes in with these language skills, like let's put them to the top of the list?
Definitely. So right now, our key needs are Russian and Chinese. So those are definitely the two languages that we are heavily recruiting for right now. Other languages that we're interested in would be Farsi and Korean, and to some degree, some African languages also.
Monica, what about the FBI? Like, what languages are priority for you all?
Right now, the priority for languages for the foreign language program specifically are Chinese Mandarin, Russian, Arabic. We're in particular need looking for people that specialize in the Yemeni dialect, and of course Spanish. With Spanish though, we're looking for people that can do not only the higher level type of work, but also that understand the coded language of gangs. That poses an issue. Of course, we need all languages across the board. We right now represent about 100 languages and dialects, and we're always adding. We often have a need that's sporadic for just very unique language like Nahuatl or Quechua. So, you know, we're always seeking qualified candidates for in any language. Yes.
Interesting. So what does, say, everyday kind of life look like in, well, but let's say before the pandemic? What did every day look like for you all? What would a student who's possibly thinking about a career track along these lines anticipate? And, you know, is it like in the movies and on TV, or can we expect something slightly different?
Well, it's probably not exactly like in the movies, depending on which movie you watched. But for us, our language analysts, and we call them language analysts because we're not just translators. We're doing a lot of analytical work. And one of the things I like to call us language detectives, because we're kind of putting the pieces together. A lot of your work will involve triage, looking through a lot of different data and trying to find the key pieces that tie together. So you're using your language skills, you're reading material in the language, or you're listening to different material in the language, and you kind of have to find that key thread in that piece of material, and then you tie that together to form a story, and then you might end up writing something we call a gist, or you might actually write a report, and then you interact with a lot of your IC people in the intelligence community, your IC customers, and and you interact with imagery analysts or people at the FBI or NCIS and CIA, and we kind of generate leads so they understand what's going on. So for example, I might see something that would help an imagery analyst know what type of imagery collection that he needs to look for. And so that's kind of the rewarding part of what we do.
That's really interesting.
So, so for the FBI, you know, the work is very interesting, very rewarding, and it can be challenging at times. And I will speak to the work of the language analyst because that's what we do in my shop day to day. So they may go in to, you know, provide either verbatim or summary translation of text or audio. They may also be interpreting for subjects, victims, witnesses on any given day. Sometimes they're asked to go on searches or arrests to provide the interpretation, or sight reading of documents that they may find during a search. They also provide a higher level interpretation if there are any dignitaries that are traveling to the US, or if they need a linguist to travel with anybody from you know, our high officials in the FBI that travel abroad. And also the FBI provides excellent training opportunities to our law enforcement partners abroad, and often the linguists travel with them to provide booth interpreting for those operations. So it's, sometimes we go in a day thinking we're going to be doing one thing, and they said, you know, we have detained somebody at the airport and we need your assistance with this. So no day is really typical. We hope for some typical days sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting because for both of you, it sounds like it at times it kind of goes beyond the language. There's other kinds of forms of communication. Mona, you're talking about kind of critical thinking and analyzing and storytelling. I think that's really interesting because then it's more than just knowing the language. You have to be able to kind of weave together a narrative and think about your audience, who's then going to be making decisions either higher up than you or what have you, right?
Right, and it's very interesting because, and it's very rewarding because what you end up doing is you become a subject matter expert on particular targets, and you'll find that you will have to learn the jargon of a particular target, and they will have their own code words or even just their own specialized terminology that even the average person off the street who speaks that language wouldn't know. And you get that knowledge, and you kind of have to understand not just the language, but how that language is used in that particular field, and learning that and putting that together. And then you'll have the chance to put together working aids and to mentor other language analysts. And that's a lot of what we do. And it's definitely very challenging, and you're always learning something new, and you're always finding just new things about the language and how it's used in different sectors.
I might add.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I see a lot of similarities in the way that we also do our work, because we also call ourselves language analysts. And, you know, one of the aspects that we are able to provide often is that cultural expertise. And that helps, you know, our agents, our intelligence analysts, or staff operations specialists build rapport with the people that they're interviewing, which is very helpful. Often we can provide information as to whether they should bow or shake, or whether they should remove their shoes before entering a home, or whether the interview can be done by a person of a different gender, or if they should use a same gender person depending on their cultural or religious background. And, you know, we help them avoid some pitfalls at times that otherwise they might not know about.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, you know, because you both talked about kind of jargon. I mean, Monica, you're talking about kind of gang slang, and Mona, you've talked about jargon in a couple of different contexts. I was also wondering about kind of like social media jargon, or kind of different vernacular that you see, like, so if you're looking at documents that maybe aren't kind of official text, but maybe they're coming through social media, through text messaging, or through different websites, whether it's Facebook or what have you, like, but people use a kind of shorthand often when they're writing in a different, in their own language, and I can think of like in Spanish, instead of saying typing out por, you just type an X. So that kind of digital literacy, is that also kind of figure into your thinking as well when you're talking about languages?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because our targets, they use all different sorts of media. So we have to understand both how do they use that media, what type of language they use when they're using that media. And also, in addition to our language analysts, we also have, we also help with what we call tool development. You can work with the people developing the software, and you use your language skills to make sure that we are actually interacting correctly with the language, because each language is different. And that we also have a work role that deals with people who have those language skills, but also know how to develop the software to help us a lot of times some of our different encryption and different things that we have. So that's another thing that people who have the language skills can do. If they like also using their computer skills, they can help with developing some of those tools that interact with the foreign language.
That's great.
With us is often linguists come in with their second or third career for them. So they bring skills from their background that they put to use for those investigations, especially, for example, if they've been programmers or work in IT, computer science, anything like that, they will definitely have a leg up when working, a cyber investigation, or if, they're working an investigation where they're dealing with a criminal enterprise that they have highly coded language, or they just don't spell things out as it's typical for some of these people. So it's very valuable to them. And then we lean on the people that have that background expertise so that they can become our subject matter experts.
That's really interesting. So think about the kind of the other side of languages, the kind of cultural awareness, the cultural competence. How do you envision, how does cultural competence or cultural awareness or cultural understanding impact kind of the daily activities of people working, say, in the FBI or the NSA? So Mona, what do you think? Like, how does culture impact, or cultural awareness?
Well, definitely you have to have an understanding of how the language is used in that culture, because there are certain terms that when you see them as a language analyst, you might know that, oh, this is unusual language to see in this context, and this probably has some sort of intelligent significance. And so a lot of times it's not just a straight translation. We have to put in that comment saying, because we know this person's background, when he references this, it's likely that he's feeling agitated or he's alluding to something else. So just having that background, both of the target that you're working and of the culture, how they would interact with each other. I mean, we get different signals by how they're interacting, and knowing the culture, what's expected and what's not expected, because that's kind of what you're looking for. You're looking for the unexpected, and having the background to know when you see that and know, oh, this is something that I need to pull out and research and find out what's going on here. That's the analysis that we're always doing.
Yeah, with us, of course, it's our bread and butter. We definitely, want to become a more diverse organization. We want to make sure that we represent what is being represented within the nation, and also within our organization. It's great to understand our diverse cultures, so that we can, empathize, and we can respect and be professional with each other. And then most of our cases come from information that comes externally. So the more that we're able to build rapport with people of different backgrounds and cultures, ethnicities, and religion, that would be very helpful. And also it is very helpful for linguists to be involved in these investigations, because they are able to decode the nuanced language and the nonverbal language, and let agents know what's going on. For example, in some cultures, you just don't make eye contact because it's seen as a challenge. And, for us, we understand that it may be that they're being deceptive, and in some cultures that's just showing respect or deference. So we are there to provide that kind of insight that otherwise they might not get.
Mm-hmm. I think you mentioned something really interesting, which is kind of the internal workings of the workplace, right? Where, you know, we're thinking of cultural understanding of clients, but also within the workplace, like people getting along with each other. Because I think in both circumstances with the NSA and the FBI, nobody's working in isolation. Like, you're part of a team and you need to kind of work together to, because put the pieces of the puzzle together, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most interesting parts of the job, that you get to interact with so many different people in the intelligence community, and just to be able to, you know, get that little piece of information either from imagery or from an FBI lead or a CIA lead, and they'll give you just this one little piece of information, and then you'll have to run with it and research it, and then you have to figure out, okay, how do I go about that? What terms what kind of, you know, what different language terms would I look for to find more on this, you know, this question? And so you're kind of starting with just a small question, and then you're kind of like, how do I find the clues, find the little crumbs here and there too? And then from there, you might do what we call social network analysis to build out a whole social network of, okay, now who is involved in all these issues? And that's kind of where the fun of the job comes in.
Monica, were you going to add something?
Well, I mean, I think about my own experience as the supervisor in Atlanta, and I lead the most diverse team. And I think about how much I have learned from my team because of their, you know, they're from different countries, different ages, different religious backgrounds. And I just think about how interesting that is. And, you know, of course, I look forward to, you know, having more experience and being exposed to that more, because it definitely broadens my horizons. And I think that we do as well do that with the other personnel in our office and throughout the Bureau.
Yeah, and I also want to emphasize that we don't just work with other language analysts. We work with the cyber analysts, and we work with, you know, maybe the aeronautical engineers to say, does this look interesting? What does this mean? And it's kind of fun to like see the language and figure out, oh, I can understand this, because, you know, I'll have to go back and I'll say, okay, is this something normal or not? So going to the cyber analysts and the engineers and figuring out, okay, this is actually something major and we need to follow this. And so that's a lot of the interesting work that you do by just collaborating with a whole range of people with a whole range of different skills.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because often when we think of like cultural competence, we're thinking, well, you know, knowing something about, say, Latin America or Russia, or, you know, their history and politics and whatever. But here you bring up a really interesting point, which is, okay, so you're talking with an engineer. Well, engineers have a kind of cultural understanding, like, so being able to communicate as a language analyst with an engineer or with a cybersecurity specialist, like, they're kind of in their own specialty. They have their jargon, they have their kind of worldview. And so kind of bridging those gaps is crucial, especially when we're talking about national security, because security is at stake, right? So that communication, being able to bridge those cultural gaps or kind of disconnections is really important. So we have a broader kind of understanding of culture.
And that's the exciting part of our work, because, you know, the agents, the special agents, the intelligence analysts, staff operations specialists, forensic accountants, we work side by side with them, and we're able to collaborate on various investigations at different levels. That also, you know, it expands our knowledge of the subject matter, and we're able to, you know, learn more and apply ourselves better later on in a similar investigation. Yeah.
So what are, because we talk about kind of popular culture, and I dare say maybe people tuning in may be more familiar with kind of representations of the FBI more than the NSA. I think NSA maybe is a little more secretive, and I don't know. But what are some misconceptions that you feel are out there that is in kind of popular culture, media, television and film, like that people get the wrong idea, or maybe it's not quite how that is? Anything come to mind?
Well, for the FBI, I think a lot of people think that we're all FBI agents, which would be really, really cool, but we probably would not get all of our work done if we didn't have the different skills that everybody brings to the table. So I think that's probably one of the things people always ask me to see my weapon, and I am not a law enforcement officer. So and actually they make me quite nervous. So I am okay with being a professional support employee. So that's how we're divided up between special agents and professional support employees. Mm-hmm. And obviously, you know, I think in the movies, a lot of times people are doing various jobs that really belong to several people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we do have extremely talented people. I don't want you to get me wrong, but it really does take a whole team to put together and drive an investigation. So I think that's one of the, probably the most frequent misconception is that everybody's an agent. We need people at all levels. We have, you know, financial technicians, photographers, paralegal specialists. We have an automotive program. We have computer scientists, electronics engineer. We have community outreach specialists. So everybody is not a special agent.
Mona, what are your thoughts? What kind of
I think the biggest misconception, I think, you know, when you work at NSA, you will find that the people there, they're very serious about their job. They're very serious about getting it right, and very serious about following the rules and following the law. And in fact, a lot of people, when they first come in and they see all the different you know, training they have to take, they're like, wow, you guys take this really seriously. And yes, we do. We're very serious about, okay, this is what we're allowed to do, and staying within the rules and getting the information right, and really trying to make sure that whatever we have, that, you know, we do proper analysis and we try and get it right, so that, you know, we can give good leads, good material out to our IC customers.
Excellent. So we talked earlier about kind of curricular pathways and what people should do to start thinking about their trajectory if they want to move into national security, you know, to be qualified. But what are some things that they should avoid? Any disqualifiers, things that if they really want to join the FBI, the NSA, but when they submit an application or look to join, there's red flags and their application may be denied. What are some of those disqualifiers? Mona, what you want to say?
Monica, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know, obviously, if you're not a U.S. citizen, that is the main disqualifier, because you have to be a U.S. citizen. Also, being in violation of our drug policy or failing a drug test during the application process. Mm-hmm. It is very important that people meet their financial obligations, such as, you know, make sure that they pay their student loans. If they have court-ordered child support, they need to meet that obligation, and also make sure they're always up to date in filing the state and federal taxes. So those would be some of the things. But I think other things, they must be able to get a top secret clearance. So there may be other disqualifiers, and some of them may be, you know, no fault of your own. It may be that you just have a relative that's just not the kind of relative that you'd want to have. You know, if my uncle is a drug lord, I might pose a risk to the FBI. So they would probably not have hired me if that had been the case. But also just, you know, especially for young people, is to make sure that they portray themselves in the best light in everything that they do. So, you know, watching their social media, you know, that's very important. Your social media is probably one of your most important resumes. So, you know, that would be something that I would suggest to young people, is just make sure that you're careful about what you post in your social media that's not going to give the wrong impression to an investigator while they're doing your background investigation.
Yeah, so I want to echo everything that Monica said. In addition, at NSA, I would say you'd also have to be careful about what we call close and continuing contact with foreign nationals. So, I mean, that doesn't mean you can't have any associates, but you probably don't want to have a foreign girlfriend or boyfriend. That's probably, or, you know, really, if you're forming really close association with a foreign national, that's going to be a red flag for us. Like I said, like Monica said, watch your social media. If you know, it's okay to friend people, but you don't want to just friend any foreign national who might want to associate with you. So I know that might be a bummer for some people, but that is probably something that would at least hold up your clearance. It's definitely going to raise some questions. Now, having a family member who's a foreign national is not necessarily a disqualifier. So if you are really interested, I would say go ahead and apply. It'll probably hold it up depending on, you know, when they came to the US and different issues, but you know, you can still apply. Of course, you have to be a U.S. citizen yourself, but I would definitely watch your foreign associations if you're interested in coming to NSA.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, we think of our, you know, our CV or our resume, but more and more I talk with students about their Google persona. So it's interesting you both mentioned social media and kind of being very careful about what you put out on social media, not, you know, and kind of the persona that you project, because that could come back to haunt you, right? I mean, the internet has a very long memory.
Yes.
And it also sounds like, you know, you want to be very careful about what somebody could leverage against you, whether it's photos on social media or incredible debt that they could use against you and things like that. So things to be thinking about as one kind of, especially as a young person is moving through college, getting ready for a potential career. You know, it's not just about curriculum, right?
Not at all. No.
Yeah.
I mean, and one thing that you mentioned is, you know, the things that can be used against us, you know, large debt. You know, if your debt exceeds your income, that may be problematic for you, because that may be a way that people can coerce you. If you have you know, a bad habit, maybe with alcohol, that somebody can use against you, or just anything that anybody could, you know, malign you over. That those are the things that you just want to make sure that people are making wise choices about their lives and thinking more strategic about their future and doing things that support that future and not sabotage that future that they want to have.
Excellent. So one other question I had also think about students are potential internship opportunities. Are there kind of things that high school or college students could do some research on, apply for, to get a taste of what life would be like with the FBI or NSA?
Yes, I'm very excited that we do have quite a few different opportunities. And in fact, right now we are taking applications, and the deadline to submit to be considered for, I guess, for the FY 21 would be, our deadline is coming up. It's October 31st. So we have a program for high schoolers. It's called the High School Work Study Program. And for that right now, we're looking for high school students with either Chinese or Russian proficiency. So for that program, they would go to school part-time, and also it's a part-time work program while they're still in high school. We also have a summer program, a summer internship. For our summer program, we're also looking primarily for Russian and Chinese, but Farsi and Korean also will be considered, and possibly some African languages like Somali. For that one, again, the deadline is 31 October. And I'm trying to think, and we also have the co-op program. The co-op program is where you go to school for 6 months, and then you work for an SA for 6 months. And hopefully you'll see the link. Will you be providing that link for the participants, Bill?
Yes.
So there is a link where you can go and see all of the student programs we have available. And I forgot one program. We also have the Gifted and Talented program, I'm sorry. And that's also for language for Chinese and Russian. So that would be for a high school student in their senior year. If they're graduating, they can spend the summer after their senior year at NSA. And for those applications, like I said, the deadline is 31 October. If you submit an application and somebody contacts you, very important to make sure you follow up on any contacts if they need any additional information from you, because we have to clear you very quickly. So any delay in providing the follow-up forms means you'll probably not be cleared in time to join the program.
Wow.
Okay.
So in the FBI, we have one program for high school students, and this is offered to our top junior and senior high school students. And it's offered by their local field office. And we've reduced the days, I think, that is available. And I think they do it one day in the summer, and they get a very intense overview and a peek into the inner workings of the FBI. It is a very exciting day for these students. And they should look at the website in their local field office sometime around, late spring, because they usually have this in the summer, or they can reach out to the community outreach specialist in their local field office. And you can find your local field office if you go to fbi.gov. And also we have our resident agencies, but they're not offering those resident agencies, which are satellite offices throughout the FBI. They're only offered at the main office. So they just have to make their way there. The two things that we have for college students, we have our honors intern program, and that's a 10-week paid internship with FBI. And we take a variety of academic areas. They don't have to be studying any particular. And unfortunately, our period to apply to that just passed. It will be, the application will be available again sometime around August of 2021. And probably they'll need to apply shortly after, because they also have to get a top secret clearance. And then once they work those 10 weeks, they earn, sick leave and annual leave just the way an employee would. And then if they are able to provide, I think, a minimum of 16 hours per month after that throughout their college career, then often that they're offered a full-time job position once they graduate. And then we also have our college hiring initiative. And this is for college students that they must have graduated within the past 24 months. So also that open season has come and gone. So for next year, they should look for the open season in September 1st to September 30th. And this is an interesting way for them to come and be in an entry level type of position that gives them an opportunity to explore the different careers within the FBI, so that they can determine what would be the best career for them. Because of course, many people come in thinking they're going to be agents, and then they find another position that suits their lifestyle or their interests best. And so again, for both of those, they should look for those postings sometime around September of next year.
Super. Those are great opportunities. And as you both mentioned, it's open to all majors, right? And you apply, and there's a place that you can fit into, right? So why don't we look? I see there's a number of questions coming in to the Q&A, and I also want to mention that the websites that we were just talking about are in the chat. So for attendees, the links are right there for you to go and explore these opportunities. So the top question at this point right now is from Colby, and he's asking, what is the on-the-job training like in the NSA and the FBI for language analysts?
Okay, so at NSA, for our entry-level language analysts, you're put into something called the Language Analyst Development Program. And so when you're put in this program, you'll be assigned a mentor. And what you do is you will actually get to tour around to different offices. It's a 3-year program, and you'll stay in your first office for 1 year. You'll also have a manager who specifically works with new hires to make sure you're getting all the training you'll need. It'll come with a roadmap, which will tell you which type of courses you'll need. You'll also get a chance to get additional language training. You'll be expected to take a minimum of 80 hours of language training. One of the things I love about our agency is that we really do support and encourage continued language training. And then you'll have a mentor who will basically kind of guide you through what we call the SIGINT tradecraft, how to do the daily searches and pulls to figure out how to do a gist or translation, and then how to put that into a report and how to work with customers. And we have really great offices that people can work with. And we encourage people, and generally most offices do, they try and include you in the full cycle of intelligence, and you'll get to visit different agencies and just see how we interact with customers. And now, like I said, it is a 3-year program, so you'll get to do we encourage people, you can finish it, you can do a tour, like once you do your first tour, then you can do a tour every 6 months. After you have 18 months experience, there's a chance to do something we call a TDY, where you can go to a different location, possibly overseas, possibly just somewhere else in the US, and see how they work there, or go to a different agency. We've had people do their external tours at FBI or Treasury, where they provide language assistance, kind of basically also giving them that SIGINT background, but also providing the language assistance to a different agency. And then after those 3 years you graduate, we say you are a full performer, go forth and do great things.
So for the FBI, we do have a checklist of both training and developmental opportunities, and most of these have to be completed within the first 30 days, and those usually involve more legal training, so that people are able to define the parameters of what their work entails, make sure that we are abiding by all the rules and policies and norms of performing our work. A lot of the training is just about the different platforms that we use, the different databases that we use. Also, we lean heavily on a shadowing program. So if there's the opportunity for a new linguist to work with a more senior linguist, and whether it's in interpreting, or also we have a quality control program for those new linguists. When they start performing their translation work, we usually have somebody review it for them, and then once they are fully trained, then we send it to a more formal quality control program, and we do that throughout the linguist career. So not only the new ones, for the new ones it's a little bit more, we review more of their work more frequently, but once they've been there for about a year, then we do kind of what would be spot checks on their work, mm-hmm. so that making sure that they're complying with the standards of translation and everything. So.
Very nice. Another question is asking how, this is from Bryce, he's asking how the pandemic has impacted the way you do your jobs in your respective agencies.
Well, a lot less face-to-face meetings, definitely. Yeah. It has meant a transition. All of our language training right now is being done virtually. So this is both good and bad. In some ways it's good for some people because you can do it from home, and some people like that, but some people also find it more challenging to stay focused. On the job, it has been a transition. People are very respectful of people's space. When we have meetings, it's over the computer now, over a Skype meeting, but we still interact, and we're still, we're still producing intelligence, but we just try to be careful of, observing space, having meetings when we can, just making sure we're observing, social distance and using it over the computer, which is good and bad. I'm finding, that the meetings tend to be more efficient and people schedule a meeting when it's necessary. They're more efficient, and I can actually attend more meetings, but I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. I can pop in, say what I need to say. I'm going to pop into another meeting right now, and I don't even have to leave my desk. And it's
there are some silver linings. So Monica, how about you? How has the pandemic affected you?
Well, definitely. And one of the things I neglected to say earlier is that we do have an initial 2-week training. So I don't know how they will handle that now because, obviously we have postponed most of the in-person training, but they've tried to fill in some of the gaps with the remote-based training. And instead of doing one whole day, they do little snippets. But for those linguists that work on unclassified work, they've been able to work from home. Sometimes we have provided them with bureau issued laptops or other ways of doing that. Also, we do work on databases for which we only have access to those within our office space. So for most of those, most of the linguists had been going into the office to complete that work, but because we had a minimal footprint, their exposure to possibly being infected was minimized because of that. And definitely we are having no face-to-face meetings. We're trying to do this either by computer, or if it's a more personal, like right now, for example, we're doing performance evaluations and program evaluations. So if it's a one-on-one, we can go into one of the larger conference rooms and just make sure that we're socially distanced and wearing masks. And so just probably the same as what everybody's going through, just a lot of mask wearing and social distancing, a lot of sanitizer around the office and sanitizing wipes, that sort of thing. So, yeah.
So Brittany's asking, what languages do the both of you speak?
So my primary language is Chinese, and then I also know Russian.
So mine is Spanish. I was a Spanish linguist for the first 18 years that I was in the Bureau. Enjoy that very much.
Wow. Another question is asking, what about work hours and dress codes for language analysts at the NSA and FBI?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so work hours for the majority of people, we have a flexible work schedule where you work 40 hours a week, and there is flexibility in that. Which I failed to mention, as a result of the pandemic, we are being allowed to do some telework. So some people are doing some of their coursework at home, and that gives them some more hours at home if they, and that it definitely, if it's an unclassified meeting that we can do from home, some of those are being done from home. And then we have some classes that we can also take from home. But the flexibility is great. Now, there are some shops that are, work odd hours or 24-hour shops, and that's called shift work. So, but generally people coming right in, you're not going to be assigned to shift work. And generally people who want shift work, because some people like the excitement of, and they want to do the shift work or be on some project that's doing that. But generally you would know going in, you would sign up for that. But the average language analyst, you get to work flexible hours. Generally, I think most offices, you can come in as early as about 5 o'clock, and some people stay as late as 7 or 8, so depending on what fits your schedule. I know some married couples, they kind of alternate where, somebody comes in very early, somebody comes in very late, and they like the flexibility. And I think the other question was dress code. We do not have any formal dress code. In fact, I think some of the people at FBI and State Department look down on us a little. But yeah, we have people coming in jeans and shorts and, you know, you have to dress. But other than that, there's no, like, you don't have to wear a suit or anything. So.
Mm-hmm. So for us, we are also thankfully enjoying you know, a lot more flexibility in our working hours. I should make a distinction between our independent contract linguist personnel and our language specialist, language analyst personnel. We bring on people as contract linguists because we have to address our foreign language needs, but we don't have full-time positions to provide for them. So the minimum that I usually ask them to work, you know, bureau-wide, I think it's 20 hours for minimum. I ask for 24 just because of continuity's sake, so that they don't lose their skills or don't forget what they have learned as far as the, you know, our standards for translation. As far as the employee linguists, they have to work a 40-hour work week. Right now, again, our office is open 24/7, and most of the work is driven by the type of work we're doing. If we're working on a project with various personnel in various roles, obviously we want to be in the office when they are there and we can collaborate. But sometimes it requires people to come in late at night, depending on the type of operation that we are working on at the time. So it can vary. And our dress code, we usually try to emphasize for people to wear business casual clothing. Obviously, if they're going to be interacting with the public, the U.S. Attorney's Office, or if they're going to be doing any kind of interpreting, we expect them to work business attire. We have dress down Fridays, but when I was a linguist, I never dressed down on a Friday because inevitably that was the time when they needed me to go to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and I was in a room with all kinds of attorneys and defense attorneys, and or you know, so I just didn't. But that is available to us on certain occasions. So, but because we deal so much with the public, we want to make sure that you know, we're portraying that professional image that is actually taking place in our work.
Right. So one student, Bryce, is asking, he's graduating, and what would the next steps or the next course of action be for a student who's like in their last semester, they're interested in national security? Like, what do they do? Do they go to the websites that we've put in the chat? Where do they go from there?
He would be an excellent candidate for a collegiate hiring initiative. So he should look for that posting between September 1st and September 30th of 2021. And, you know, again, we look for a variety of majors and skill sets and talent. So, you know, he shouldn't be worried about that. And again, most of them, we can bring them on in entry-level positions so that they can get the full scope of the Bureau. They definitely work very closely with the FBI's mission, so they do become aware of different roles that they could have within the Bureau that would interest them. I think it's an excellent opportunity, and I hope that all your listeners take advantage of that, especially if they're close to graduating or they are within the 24 months of graduation. Super.
Mona, what would you say?
So for us, our website that you should look at is intelligencecareers.gov/NSA for our regular hires if he's graduating. And I would say our next language analyst vacancy, I'm thinking it will be out in November, which is not that far away, but I'm expecting it to be out very soon. So I would keep an eye out for that. Another thing I want to say about hiring, we kind of spoke about proficiency. Proficiency is kind of one of the most important things that we look for. So in order to bring you in, you generally speaking, you have to be at least something we call ILR 2.2, so a level 2 in reading and a level 2 in listening on the interagency language roundtable. The test that we use at NSA is called the Defense Language Proficiency Test, or the DLPT. So to familiarize yourself with that, I believe if you Google DLPT 5 familiarization guide. You can get some samples on kind of what the different levels, questions at the different levels will be like. And you also might see some, if you Google DLI, the Defense Language Institute. I think they also have some materials on their website, which will give you some examples of what's at a level 2. Level 2 is kind of the minimum that we hire for. And then the goal is for all of our analysts to get to level 3, and that's considered the professional level. We also will probably, but I don't know when, probably have some ads out for what we call cross-training for people who are interested in cross-training into either Russian or Chinese. I don't have a time frame for that, but for those, what we look for definitely for people who are very, very, very highly skilled at learning a language as an adult. So they would probably, we want people who have learned, you know, at least to level 3.3, possibly 4.4 in, you know, in a language that we're not hiring for now, but would be interested in cross-training. So that might, those ads might not come out until next year, but you might want to keep coming back and look out for those ads as well.
Excellent.
Bill, if I might add something too, our independent contract linguist posting is available at all times, and so there's no open season for that. And to Mona's point, we're looking for level 3s on the interagency language roundtable scale. They can have a combination, but you know, to be safe, just we're looking for 3, so they can have a 2+ in one and a 3 in another. But if they're pretty sure that they can test at the 3 level, then they should be very safe. If they go to the FBIjobs.gov website, they can find information on all of the positions that I have mentioned. They can find out our drug policy, all the qualifiers, the disqualifiers, and you know, what are the things that we're looking for each specific position. But definitely the independent contract linguist posting is available all the time. And from our contract linguist cadre, we usually convert those to full-time positions as they become available. So it is a great way for them to see whether they do like that position or if they would prefer another one. And for the most part, that's most of our linguists have been contract linguists in the past.
Oh, that's great. So I think we have time for one more question. There's a really interesting question about if there's any use for students with practical art backgrounds like textiles, woodworking, and that kind of thing.
I did see that we had a need for, graphic artist at some point. So something to that effect. I think if he's handy, you know, there are many positions that being handy with different things may come in, you know, to play for them. So definitely, I mean, don't let that dissuade you, obviously, from applying for sure.
Off the top of my head, I can't think of any positions, but definitely, like you said, if you have proficiency in language and you're interested in coming to NSA, go ahead and apply. I know that we do have, you know, people who do like graphic arts and digital media and that kind of stuff. Woodworking, I'm not sure about, but you never know. So throw your, throw your hat in the ring and see it.
Right. And what I often tell students is like it's more about like how you tell your story. So you have these skills. How do you kind of piece these things together to tell your story that says, yeah, this is why I should be in this position at the NSA or FBI or wherever it is. So it's often we feel it's kind of channeled into a specific pathway when really like any pathway could be open to us. It just depends on how convincing a story we tell, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're looking for the same skills, I think, the analytical skills, the collaboration, the flexibility and adaptability, you know, good judgment, also being the initiative, the self-motivation, and then also strong interpersonal skills. So, you know, those are skills that are needed pretty much anywhere, but definitely within the FBI. And I would imagine NSA too.
Yeah. Well, Mona and Monica, this has been a great conversation. It's been a pleasure to chat with you all, and I appreciate your time today, your insights, your valuable advice, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for the honor of inviting us. We really appreciate that. It's been a nice day for us.
So as a reminder for the attendees, the recordings of the panel discussions will be made available later this week. They'll be on the CULTR website. To keep the conversation going and to share your experience in the post-event survey, please click on the link after you leave the Zoom webinar. We'd love to hear your feedback, ideas for future events. And later this afternoon, we'll have the alumni panel from 2 to 3 p.m. On behalf of CULTR, I want to thank you for joining us. And that concludes today's session on national security. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.